All right. I'm sorry. I'm 5 minutes late. 5 minutes late. Told everyone 8:30. It's 8:35. I'm sorry. I meant to be punctual, but sometimes these things happen. But I've got good news. We brought reinforcements this time. You've got RJ and I, but we're adding one more. Alex, welcome.
Hello, owner of the Bucks here, ready to chime in occasionally on this podcast.
Thank goodness. It's good to put a voice and a face and and a name to the teams here because so much of this is impersonal. It's electronically. I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to send you a trade offer, or I'll send you a message on Discord. It's so nice to put a face and a personality and a name to this kind of stuff. So thank you and welcome, and thank you for joining the podcast. It's great to have other faces and opinions other than just RJ and I because we're very predictable and boring.
No, it is. I appreciate you having me on. It is the podcast aspect of this league is really cool because it's cool to hear the discussion around the league instead of just being in your own bubble. To hear what other people think.
Yeah, you hear that, RJ? We're cool.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm aiming for. Like we all like to do this, so I like to hear everybody's opinion. Alex has gotten to the point where at least in like other conversations with teams, like I use his first name rather than Bucks at this point. So like I think I thought it was only right, and I think it's perfect timing for him to hop on. So I think
Definitely.
it's great.
And you're worried about being cool. You've got the man bun. I can't even grow a beard, a mustache. All I've got is this crazy curly ass hair. So we make do with what we've got. But as the title mentions, we're on part 2 of Happy New Year, where we're going through each of the teams and suggesting some moves they should be making because it's a lot of fun trading. Because that's fun to make. So we're going to suggest for the NFC team some trades they should be making. Because we were going by the top to bottom rosters last time, we covered the Packers. So we've covered 17 of the 32 teams. So we'll cover the other 15 NFC teams, including the 3 of ours and trades that we think we should be making. So when we get to our teams, maybe we'll introduce kind of what our strategy is, and that'll inform some of the feedback we get on the pod. But, hopefully this leads to some fun trades. I think indirectly, we're going to take credit for the DeAndre Hopkins trade, even though it wasn't the trade that we thought needed to happen. But I'm still going to take credit for it because you know what? My ego needs that. But otherwise, we'll dive right in. Any other thoughts before we jump into it, guys?
No, I'm glad
Ready.
we poked and prodded and offered DeAndre up enough times to where he eventually got traded.
All right. So let's start with a team that really doesn't need a lot of help, regardless, and we really shouldn't help at all. It's the Bears. It's another team in the NFC North, so we'll start in the North because we've already covered the Packers. But again, Andy has definitely made his team his own, taking it from the goose preference of dollars per point, keeping that as low as possible, and spreading out the point scorers without maintaining any kind of stable of studs to a team with Joe Mixon on it, Odell Beckham on it, Travis Kelce, a number of other high-end stud-level players on offense, Harrison Smith on defense, guys that Goose, when he owned this team, may not have paid up for, but hey, it's not Goose's team anymore. Goose owns the Chiefs. So, good on Andy for making this his team. That said, because he is taking on some larger contracts and some more expensive contracts, he's going to have some challenging times ahead with a roster of 23 players and 27 million left and about 44 years left. So he's going to have to do some bargain hunting to fill out the rest of this roster. But he's definitely got a strong core from a player perspective, especially on offense to start with. And hey, who knows? Maybe if he's lucky, Antonio Brown will retire for once and for all and save us all the headache of next year. Alex, since you're our guest, what are your thoughts on this roster?
It's he's got a solid roster. He doesn't need a lot of help. Like you said, he's got a good starting lineup. It's just going to be hard to find a lot of depth with how few players he has and how high his cap is, I would think. If I were him, I would probably be trying to move Antonio Brown for something.
Yeah, I think Brown will be a great piece to move. The problem is, $15 million for that. Like, it's almost one of those where he's going to have to pay to move the contract.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what again he just picked up Foyesett Olakon from his holdout, so didn't help his cap situation. I almost wonder what Kelsey would bring back if he was trying to trade down from a tight end perspective. I know he really wanted a player like that to kind of have at a scarce position, one of the studs. But again, Kelsey's, I want to say, the same age as Gronk. So at some point, the clock's going to start ticking on him. So when you got a $20 million player at that kind of position, could you trade out of it and still get a couple pieces that can help you on the cheap, some of these, to a tight end needy team? I don't think he's going to trade into me, and I really can't fit a contract like that on my team. But there's definitely other contenders who could use a player like Kelsey, especially for a push this year, even if this is the beginning of his decline.
So with his team, like I'm probably not getting rid of Aluakon. Just the amount of points that he puts up, he's really consistent, and I'd at least want to wait out the offseason to see what happens with Deion Jones before we ultimately know who's going to be the other middle linebacker next to Aluakon. Also, if I'm not mistaken, his contract is either on its last year or
He's
expiring.
He's a free agent.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities that he just goes to another team and becomes less productive. Less productive, I say that, probably being a 90 tackle guy rather than leading the league in tackles.
Right.
Or being quite up there. I agree with the moving Kelsey. I would be interested to see what he could break that down into. Probably tight end depth, or at least a slightly less expensive tight end 1+. Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, I'd break him down too.
Yeah.
Just same idea. Like, I would be interested to see what type of like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3+ he could get back, and just cut some of that salary. Because he's not in an awful situation, but if you could get $10 million, $15 million off the books, like to somebody else, while we are all flush with cap space, it'd be fine. I could understand giving up a fifth to get rid of the Antonio Brown contract, but at a certain point, you might just want to take the almost $8 million just for cutting him, because I don't know if anybody's even going to take him. If they're getting paid, they'd probably want something more substantial.
So I'm going to piggyback on RJ's idea and actually mention a potential offer. See what he thinks. What if he called the Ravens and said, "Give me DJ Moore, give me Zach Ertz, I'll give you Bobby Trees and Travis Kelce"?
I think that's acceptable.
Kelsey's or Ertz's contract's not a whole lot better. He's at 15.
No, but that upgrade from a questionable not how status wise on here, but questionable in the I don't know at what point he comes back this year, and kind of an upgrade into DJ Moore. I know DJ Moore wasn't the name that everybody was praising. They're still waiting for him to really arrive, but he seemed pretty consistent as a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, in that middle range.
I think it was top 10 in targets. So
was he? Okay.
I didn't remember seeing that. Again, I was surprised by who was top 10 in targets. One of the other leagues that I'm in had a question of who was the only team with 2 players in the top 10 in targets. You're not going to guess it. It was the Ravens. Marquise Brown and Mark Edwards. But I'm pretty sure I was very surprised to see DJ Moore near the top of that list as well. So as long as that's the rules, the coach there, he's going to feature DJ Moore.
Okay. Well, that's news to me. That's even better. I don't know. I guess by perception, I didn't hear his name as frequently, so I kind of assumed that he had cooled off, at least as far as dynasty popularity. But if his production's still there, I think that is a fantastic trade. It's
Yeah.
like Raven certainly wants that upgrade at tight end.
Yep. The other idea would be to go back to where Kelsey started this whole mess, the Bengals. See if he can get Kelsey in a Kelsey for Hawkinson type swap. I don't know if that's a straight up move right now or not, based off of some of the. I guess. But hold on, was Hawkinson actually in the Pro Bowl last year?
Hmm. I think you're probably paying on top of Kelsey to get Hawkinson at this point.
So
Just because you still get 2 years of that contract, and then you get longevity after that at a very high price.
yeah. So, all right. Well, I'll go with the Ravens offer as my suggestion of what could potentially be done with a Kelsey. But I don't know if that's something that's interesting. But Ravens is definitely in that win now mode. Let's go to a really fun team to talk about in our division, and that's the Lions. Nick's got ownership of this team now, and he's been cautiously wading into the trade conversation pool, but I think he's done pretty well so far. Flipped a couple of pieces for some nice picks, and really building out the war chest in that standpoint. This is a team that's going to require some patience. He has 112 million in cap room, so a lot of flexibility here, especially as he rebuilds it. The only major contract he has is Gardner Minshew, which is a perfect thing for him to hold because he could become a very valuable $18 million quarterback if things go the right way in the season. So I think what he's doing here, in terms of a move that you could see him making to make use of either the cap room or some of the players on this team. RJ, is there anything that kind of jumps out to you?
So these would probably be my controversial suggestions, and it would probably to take your profits on some of the young wide receivers and young offensive pieces. I would move Juwan Jennings for anything more than a 5th round pick. I mean, obviously, I'm not evaluating him at a 5th round pick. Just saying that was his draft capital. Take your profits. Because there's not a lot that you can generate more things with. Like, sure, maybe get rid of a safety, but I got yelled at for trying to offer safeties in too many trades last pod, because there is just an overabundance of mildly productive safeties, so the market's not there. Next things you're trading off is Juwan Jennings. I probably take Tommy Tremble just because he looked good at the end of last season, and I just find somebody that's willing to pay a late first or an early second plus. I would take those profits and actually get the guys that he wants rather than the ones that he inherited, even if he is somewhat fond of them. Like the first and the second round wide receivers probably wouldn't move those because some of them have diminished in value. But the later round picks that you can get some type of amount for, take it now.
I agree. Moving from a position of strength. Anything jump out to you here, Alex?
No, I was gonna say the same stuff. I would just keep selling anything I can get value for at this point, except for maybe like Rodgers and Palmer, the youngest wide receivers. But yeah, I'll just keep accumulating picks if I were him.
Yeah, I would definitely sit on those 2 wide receivers. I think Rodgers is at a point where he's nowhere near his first round draft capital. And I think Palmer is probably worth that right now. But I don't know, to really get a first round pick for Josh Palmer, somebody would have to be really willing to gamble right now. So those are probably better off just holding on to, because at a certain point they could be worth more than that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So in terms of Tommy Tremble, I think that would be a player I would be going after. I don't know if I agree with the late first, early second price tag, but I can see trying to get the locked in benefit. I'm curious about, say, one of his DNs like Chase on. I think that could be an interesting point of, do I lock in some kind of return on a player who's out of out of favor at the moment, because Jacksonville will have the first pick. I think everyone's leaning to them going O line, but if they go D line, then Chase on is relegated to rotation rather than a starting position. So I could see trying to minimize some risk, or kind of get out of some of the players, kind of RJ, like you were saying previously, like, hey, you inherited some of these players. You might not like some of these players. Get out where you can, lock in some form of not profit, but 60, 70 cents on a dollar, and put that into a position or a player that you do like and want to build around, especially for some of these guys who have some risk built in.
Yep.
All right. Let's talk about the team nobody likes to talk about, and that's mine.
Sell it all. Fire sell. 5th round for everything. No.
I've been trying, and nobody wants to give me 5th rounders for these guys.
Keep sending me your Austin Ecklers.
So
you are building the Viking South offense.
Yeah. Yep.
as annoying as it might be for the rest of like the league to hear, like, you're just trying to churn the bottom of your roster, which is probably better than like most people's, like midpoint of their rosters. So like you're trying to churn your lesser valuable things. Like, I don't know, a Khalil Mack into, I don't know, I would probably go try to get a Luakon from the Bears. Similar contract, maybe throw on a couple more players that you don't really, I don't want to say you don't need or don't value, but like that are, a Rex Burkhead who is in a fantastic position, but like you just have a ridiculous amount of running backs. Like, just, I would I would package more of your low end talent or lower end talent on your roster for more top tier talent, and just continue to consolidate and get better.
Yeah, I mean, just the trades I've been trying to make, because I mean, I don't care. I will sacrifice the good of my team for content. I'm recognizing that no one's going to give me good return on Tua, Rex. My receiver's not named CD, and then a good portion of my defense. Like, I'm just not going to get the return of those players. I'm going to have to be patient on them, and that's completely fine. I think the thing I'd like to do is, if I can move out of one of my running backs, I think that would be helpful, because I don't like the idea of maintaining 6 running backs, especially considering our starting requirements. I think I have the flexibility to use the picks I have where I need to use them. But again, I wouldn't mind getting out of some of my bigger contracts if I could. But I recognize that, like I said, the Rexes, the Tuas, the Tyler Lockett's, the Khalil Macks are going to be players I'm not going to get value on until Russ announces he's staying in Seattle. Chicago officially moves from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Things that are on the horizon to happen, but until there's a news clip that says this is happening, I'm going to get 70 cents on the dollar. So I got to figure out exactly what the moves look like. It's not exactly an easy position to deal from, and from the outside, it's not an easy team to deal with. Because RJ, like you said, it's hey, you see CD there. I'd rather get a CD or a DK in the deal. Why am I getting offered Tyler Lockett? Not the easiest situation to deal with, but again, I'm always open to make a deal happen with any player. No one's off limits, but obviously, different players are going to have different values.
Right. Yeah, I would almost say package both of the San Francisco wide receiver or running backs for another running back that's like $6 million or less, that you feel they have a better control of the backfield and themselves, like by themselves. But you're also a San Francisco fan, so I don't mind the idea of holding on to that backfield.
And again, that's a wait and see situation too.
Yep.
Is you're going to have a new sort of offensive coordinator since McDaniel moved to Miami. So does Sermon now get a chance? Mostert's probably going to walk. So where does he land? There's just so much of my team that is laden with risk. So people are smartly pricing that risk into any offer they send me, but it's not exactly the easiest situation to deal with because, hey, Mostert could go to Miami and be the 1A or 1B to Myles Gaskin, and holy shit, he's worth like an early second, for especially at that contract, versus, oh, hey, he didn't go anywhere, and now he's third running back on the 49ers, but they're really liking what they're seeing in Elijah. Like, there's a really wide range of outcomes on these players. So I'm going to call my own foul in this one and say, I get it, but I think if I could make a deal, it would be around Gibson, Javonta, or Singletary, moving off of them for pieces that kind of round out the rest of my roster. And I wouldn't mind actually adding a tight end before the draft. So, that's kind of the stuff I'm trying to do.
You don't have any on your roster, so I completely ignored that position.
It's a small hole there.
Well, we'll figure that out. There's plenty of those out there. Although I'm sure someone will give me a very fair deal on a player to fill out that hole on my roster. If nothing else, I'll pull a Jeremy and drop $17 million on a tight end in free agency. That can only turn out well. Speaking of things that turn out well, play the Darth Vader music, play the villain music, play all the music that introduces the people that we love to hate and hate to love. It's the Giants and the current owner of Josh Allen.
A couple other studs too.
Oh yeah, that's kind of upsetting. That's bullshit that he's in my division. Can I leave for a year and come back to a different team?
Like you scared RJ away. I mean, he's so upset about this still, about that Josh Allen deal, that you scared him away from the podcast. So we'll see if he can crawl his way back here. But Brandon, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I haven't caught anything that's happened so far other than you going on about your team a bit. So
so we were going about the NFC North to start with. We were saying that the Bears, looking at either Bobby Woods or Travis Kelce, were the players that made sense to move off of. Lions was either going to have to deal from a position of strength on a couple of players or try and sell while he still could on a couple of the rookies that are trending towards misses, although granted many of them on rookie contracts, not exactly tough situations. And then I mentioned on my team, what I was thinking of doing in those kind of trades. But again, I also was clear my team was a tough team to trade with. But that being said, maybe it makes sense for us to move on to a different division, and head to the South. So, we should talk about the team that's listed first in the NFC South. That's the Buccaneers. So, Alex, what are you trying to do with your team?
I'm trying to win, trying to compete right now. I think I overachieved and surprised myself a little bit last year, but I want to run with that momentum and see what I can do this year. See if I can't scare the Falcons a little bit there at the top.
I'm all for that. Anything that scares the Falcons makes me a very happy man. Mm-hmm. So,
not to be that guy that says what if, but if I would have beat the Falcons in week 1 last year where I lost by a point, less than a point, we would have swapped. Our standings would have been different. I would have beaten them in the first round of the playoffs. Just saying.
So, Alex, I think this was before you joined, but I think 2 or 3 years ago in the playoffs, I barely missed the playoffs because I got knocked out in the last week by Jeremy. And then went ahead and said if I'd made the playoffs in the position I was supposed to, I declared myself the people's champion because I would have won the title. So you're joining a long history of people who are grabbing onto those what ifs and holding on tight.
Yes.
Declaring himself the current people's champion because had he made it through his worst scoring effort of the season in the playoffs, he would have won the title this year.
Yep. In my own mind.
So We got an AFC and an NFC People's Champion. And actually, yeah, I was actually now thinking about it. It was the year that Brandon won the title as the Giants because of
That's right.
God mode of
Zadarius Smith,
Smith.
Monday
And
night. Yeah, 60-some points. It was delicious.
I've got my own Zadarius. Unfortunately, it was just week 1 last year, and they disappeared for the rest of it. But
Oh, it wasn't even the 60-point game. He had a 40-point game to clinch the division that year against me. Like the second to last game of the year.
You were trying to
Zadarius-
compete at some point in this league?
at some point. I don't know. I scored some points. in some
Yeah, he
seasons.
had a couple like monster weeks that season. But
all right, so, anyways, that's enough about other teams other than Alex's. We're focused on him right now. So, if he was to try and make a win now move, Mariota looks like he's hitting free agency and drawing some interest from teams. So he's probably worth hanging on to, especially if he's going to be a high valued backup. You made the move to get the RFA tag on Darrell Williams, so now you've got him at a low price of $13.1 million. But considering of his share of the timeshare, that could be pretty solid, especially considering that you're just complimenting Eckler rather than having to produce points there. The thing that I would be interested in, and I know this is a player that you have no interest in moving, so that's why I'm going to suggest it, is if you're really looking to compete now, how much could you get for a player like T. Higgins?
I've gotten offers all over the board for him. Thought about it, but it would take a pretty Herculean offer for me to move.
Yeah, it's one of those where the deals I'm trying to suggest here are dealing from positions of strength. I think Higgins is definitely dealing from a position of strength. I think everyone thinks, oh my God, Higgins, he's the second receiver to Jamar Chase. Who gives a shit? Like, look at what he's producing. Look at the points he's producing, and he's an outside of the top 10 receiver. So he's going to be an easier guy to extend anyway. So I would say from a position of strength, that would be a solid piece. Max Crosby, I think, would also be a solid piece. I think a lot of the analytical sites are really latching on to him as a player that showed out last year. And then I would say the position to really add is you've got options at tight end, but none of them really blow my socks off. I know that I traded you Hooper, so there's only so much you can do there. But I would say if you could add something to Hooper and flip him off to free up some cap space and maybe grab one more kind of backup upside tight end, that could make some sense. I'm not sure how Degura shakes out this year with, I think, Tanyan being a free agent. So if he hangs on to the job, then you're probably all set. But something like that, where whether it's D tackle or tight end or adding one more receiver or running back piece, that's the deal I try to make first.
For sure. Yeah, definitely looking to upgrade tight end position. I still have a little bit of faith that Jonnu Smith in year 2 in New England is going to learn that system and put up a few more points than he did last year, but we'll see.
My only concern there is I think he's playing the H-back role. But again, that was a wildly productive role for Hernandez when he was playing it. I don't think Jonnu's started killing people yet, so that's probably a good thing in his favor. But at the same time, it can be wildly productive. It just has to be, Mac Jones continuing to take the next couple steps forward. I'm going to shut up now. I've been talking too much. RJ, say something.
So I would probably look to get rid of one of the linebackers. Jermaine Pratt looked really good in the postseason. Leonard Floyd also looked really good. I probably just try to capitalize on one of those two names and turn it into a quality wide receiver.
That's what I'm trying to flip Floyd now, shopping Floyd now for wide receiver. So if anybody else has an offer out there, send it my way.
Yeah, I think honestly, like receiver is the only position that I would be trying to improve. I mean, like tight end, you could certainly try and make something happen, but I don't know if I'd be willing to pay a premium asset to upgrade there, because I do think the timeshare between Hooper, timeshare on your roster of Hooper or Smith could be sufficient. But adding another receiver maybe using some of your I think you have a couple picks next draft, could be helpful there too.
Yep, for sure.
Free agency is gonna be relatively important for you. Just adding those extra little pieces, or at least adding enough assets at other positions than wide receiver to give you like excess at those positions to trade into wide receivers.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the wide receiver market's very good this free agency.
Right.
I think your team's good. I definitely wouldn't be moving any of those defensive ends though.
Yeah. And the only way I'd move Higgins is if I got another pretty promising young and cheap receiver back. But I think I might stand pat there personally.
Yeah, it would have to be a play where you were getting a promising but lower value receiver back plus something else. So let me do a quick scan here and see if something kind of pops up. I don't know. Maybe something like a Kadarius Toney and a piece coming from the Giants. Again, not saying that it would have to be a heck of a piece on top of Toney, but for a player trying to add at that spot. If the Cardinals, say, wanted to combine, now they don't really have a good receiver to give you back outside of Jamar Chase. So
that already got rid of Hopkins.
Yep.
Seems like everybody right now is trying to add receivers.
Seems to be the sellers. So it's a matter of, instead of straight adding, like upgrading the piece is going to be the challenge there. So I don't know. Definitely some options, but it's a different, like you said, a difficult thing to do, especially ahead of what looks to be a wide receiver heavy draft class here. So we'll see where some of the landing spots are before we get too excited. But all right. Well, those are some ideas. I hope they're somewhat useful. But definitely, as mentioned, you exceeded expectations last year, and your team's in a good spot. So a lot of good things to be happy about there. Moving down to the next team in the South, it's the Falcons, who is famously a year away from a major salary cap crunch, and including one of those salary cap crunch players is a player who might very well be considering some baseball right now. I'm mostly saying this to mess with Falcons, but still, not necessarily the spot you want to be in for a player who's the quarterback and one of the cornerstones of your franchise. But you've got Kyler Murray, who is going to need to get paid. Again, he's the defending 2-time champion, so there's not a lot that needs to be said that isn't already known. I think that the trades he needs to be doing is either outright selling some of these players for picks or breaking them down to either cost-controlled plus picks or something of that nature. The challenge is going to be Brett. If the player is worth here, Brett's going to ask usually for this. So
I'm a fan of that strategy personally. It seems to work out every now and then. So,
well, again, he's the 2-time defending champion, so I can't rag him for taking that strategy. But anything. But somebody I can rag for some of their strategies just joined us here. We got Bill from the Broncos joining us here, Mr. I'm all out when it's time to acquire picks in the season. Then I'm all in the offseason, the movies picks, and then I'm all out again. Like, honestly, we're playing hokey pokey with you, man, and I'm not sure I like it.
No, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Join the club.
Right. No, as far as we're talking about Falcons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as Falcons go, I think that he might have a very similar plan with what Chargers said last time we did this, or last time he was on. He said something about going all in while he still can afford it, and then just suck. I think that might be a thing that happens here, except that the Falcons has the ability to probably pay all of his players that are going to hit fifth-year options. I don't know. I mean, that's for a year from now, but I think
I would probably just be trying to purge some of them. I wouldn't get rid of all of the impending 5th-year options. The one that I would focus on, or at least capitalize on the ridiculous value right now, is Debo. Like that.
I was actually going to say, like, because of the fact that he's long-term value, I was going to say get rid of Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, and or Calvin Ridley, depending on how you feel about Ridley's actual returning or not.
Also, Kamara's legal situation.
Well, yeah, that's why you get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
You find a sucker.
I feel like those 3 players have literally been on his block for like 2 years.
Who?
Josh Jacobs, Kamara, and either Ridley or Debo have been on his trade bait for 2+ years.
Yeah,
Just
well, I mean,
just to have something there.
yeah, they're available for the right price.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been trying for years to get a deal done with Falcons. I don't think I've ever got one done. He's a
The best
reluctant
part about this is
reluctant
he's not
trader.
going to have a choice whenever Kyler goes and plays baseball.
He's not going to go and play baseball.
I know he's not going to play baseball, but when it comes to messing with the Falcons, I have to do what I can as often as I can. So, that being said, I will do something nice here. And Brett's in the chat. He doesn't want to join the podcast, but he wants to share his opinion in the chat. You need me to read it. Tough shit. Not going to happen. You can actually join on and say it yourself. But that being said, I will say that the move that I think makes some sense here for Falcons, and I know I just talked about them being in the cap crunch and wanting to be smart about this, but if you're really going to say, I'm going for one last ride, see if I can three-peat, and then start the rebuild, this is the Travis Kelce team. Darren Waller in a deal for Travis Kelce that is a controlled contract that you could get probably Kelce plus for. And considering the injury issues Waller was having, he's 29 years old. He's not that much younger than a Kelce. Like that's the deal I'm making. I'm going after Travis Kelce and Bobby Woods if I can for Waller, and then pick a low end piece from the team. And I think that's the move I'm making. If I do that, then I am reinforcing depth. I am maintaining playmakers, and I'm going after one last shot and trying to repeat.
What would you say to just the idea of like Calvin Ridley straight up for Kelce, or like add something to Ridley? I mean, again, it's one of those things of like, I don't even know who has Kelce, but
Bears.
Okay. So he probably wouldn't go for it, but generally, but like the idea of a younger wide receiver, if you believe that he's coming back, get rid of him for the old tight end.
Even if you believe he's coming back, you're not going to pay the price that you believe he's coming back. Nobody's going to do that. He is a very diminished asset at this point, and you're kind of just stuck with him. Like, are any of you guys going to pay a reasonable price? Do any of you guys want to pay a first round for Calvin Ridley or better?
I believe he retires, so I'm not paying anything.
Okay. So
I consider a first for him, but again, I'm not going to give the first that a Falcons team would want to get for him. Like Falcons should win a top 10 first for him. I'm going to give 128 for him. I've got it. Like that's the first that I'm giving for him.
Yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, if I had him, I'd probably take whatever I could get first for him. But I'm also not one of the ones that would be buying either.
Yeah, I mean, if he plays, he's solid. Like,
yeah,
I think if he plays, he doesn't go back to Atlanta. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
kind of said as much. Like a fresh start might do him some good. And if
Yeah.
the owner's saying that, it sounds like
yeah. And like I heard this a while ago. I think it was still in season whenever it was like this random blurb of like, oh yeah, don't forget Calvin Ridley still exists. Like he was doing this to force his way out of Atlanta. I don't know if it's true. That's kind of nonsense to me. That plays into the mold of Kyler Murray doesn't want to be a Cardinal anymore, kind of thing. But
I don't know. I don't read any of those headlines. I don't care about it.
Someone's been watching too much Ben Simmons coverage.
Yeah.
Anyways, again, it's also possible. Again, Simmons did it, so it's a question of if Calvin did it. Anyways, this is clearly Alex's division to win, so we're not going to spend any more time with the team.
Yeah, it's just awkward. Having the Murray, Kamara, Ridley uncertainty going into the offseason is just unfortunate. But it also is possible it all works itself out by the summer, and we're like, oh yeah, he's still the top 3 roster in the league and has a shot to win the chip again.
right.
Yeah. I completely forgot about the Kamara stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty likely they all work themselves out. But if even one of them doesn't, that's a pretty big blow.
He's also got enough guys, I think, that missing one of those pieces is not a problem. Maybe outside of Kyler, just from the quarterback position. But
Hey, if he's looking for a running back, though, who can help him? The Panthers. Justin Jackson's available for $14.1 million. But no, in all seriousness, I think James is another team who subscribes to the same church that the Broncos does of oscillating between picks and players at interesting times.
But he's just a roster.
Again, has oscillated more towards the players at this point. Stafford is clearly a quarterback to build around. From a DN perspective, he has united the Boses under one flag with some other good DNs, so that could be a problem. Has some very solid linebackers, but again, you got Stafford, you got the DNs, you got the linebackers, and you've got, I'll call it the receivers, and then you got a problem.
I mean, do you not believe? Are you not a Stevenson believer?
I'm a believer in Stevenson. I think I wouldn't be. The problem I have is Jackson put up his points when Eckler was hamstrung. So if you're going to buy off on a player of that cost, you need to basically be betting that Eckler is going to have a similar type of injury history next year he did this year. Zach Moss was all but played off the field by Devin Singletary. And then Ramondre Stevenson, at best, was a timeshare with Harris. So I believe in the players, but these are RB2 or 3s. You don't have a solid 2 or a 1 or 2 here. And I think that's what he's potentially missing from this. That, and then the same kind of conversation at tight end, same conversation at D tackle. Okay, I'll go ahead and say it. RJ, this team could probably use a safety.
he's also got 106, so I think running back is theoretically something that could get answered at that pick.
Maybe.
Right. So again,
maybe
he puts running back there, but then he has enough holes elsewhere that this is a team, and I love that Carolina is active as he is in the trade market, because this is a team that needs about 4 or 5 more trades to get it to the place it needs to be. This is not a team that's a trade away. It's not a team that's a pick away. It's not a team that's a signing away. It is 4 or 5 more trades of rounding out some of these pieces. He's done a great job of assembling some of these core pieces, but he's going to have to move, again, ideally for him around the edges, but some of the stuff into some of the other positions if he's going to have a shot at really running with the Alexes in the NFC South.
Well, I was looking at this for Justin Jackson. I was looking at this because I wasn't sure where his contract lies. He's a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
He can go anywhere. Now, Grant, is he going to be worth $14 million regardless of where he lands? I have no idea. He looks fine whenever Eckler was out.
You're talking about like real life free agent?
Yeah, real life free agent.
Yeah, he's also 26, so that means the market on him is very small because NFL teams don't like to give second contracts to running backs.
I mean,
Like unless they're like 1 year deals.
Derrick Henry's 28 or something like that, right?
Derrick Henry or Justin Jackson.
I think Jackson was even starting to lose his hold on that second job in
to Kelly
2
LA,
years ago to Kelly.
I don't know how big his market's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't think that the defense is fine. I think like safety he'll find something somewhere. D tackle I like DJ Reader. I like BJ Hill. I think that the Bengals D line is pretty solid for what they are doing. Overall, I just
BJ Hill too.
He did.
He doesn't currently.
Yeah, he was I think he traded him away for tag purposes. I don't know, but I had both. I had BJ Hill and DJ Reader, and traded them both to him last season for like 4th round picks or something like that, and then they blew up at the end of the year. but yeah, I mean, overall, like I don't mind this team. Like he definitely needs a tight end. He could probably fare decently. I think, like to your point, Mike, about him going back and forth with picks. I think a lot of it kind of depends on what his long-term plan is with Deontay Johnson. Now that salary is going to not be great anymore because the old Seahawks owner didn't pay attention and save that man. Now he's going to be like $18 million next year. So I'm curious what he wants to do with that. If he's going to keep him, that's one thing, but I feel like that's a mid-season flip.
So this team could easily be turned into like a top-end contender.
Yeah.
With like a bunch of moves.
Yeah.
I would start off with the defensive ends and the linebackers because you have an excessive amount of value just stuck there.
Yeah.
Like, I would break it all the way down to just the Bosa's. Get rid of Clowney, get rid of Tack, get rid of Jalen Phillips. It's just value that you don't necessarily need. You can pick up a defensive DE3 in free agency. I would tear the linebackers down to like Kenneth Murray, Roquan, Za'Darius, and just get rid of everything else. Get whatever I can for it, and I would throw all of those picks like in to either upgrade the players that I have, turn Corey Davis into somebody better with a cheaper contract, turn Zach Moss into something, or turn Zach Moss into a pick and combine a bunch of picks and buy stuff.
What if you could turn, I don't know, Corey Davis into Tyreek Hill? I don't know, Washington, would you be interested in something like that?
Sorry, what was that? Still catching up.
If we could turn the 106 and say Corey Davis into Tyreek Hill, is that something you might be interested in?
It's a possibility. It's worth talking about.
But again, we're glad you're here to help us talk about it.
I mean, I'll take the 101 for Tyreek Hill as well.
Oh, it did take a lot more than Tyreek Hill.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you'd take a lot of things for it.
It would take almost a roster of those middle-aged people.
So, like, to your point, like, he has 106 now, right? Like, running back technically could be solved there, but at the same time,
the leftovers, if you want to go running back at that point.
So flip it, right? So, like, take the DNs that he has now and find a way to make a running back, like a mid-range running back to a high-end one, whatever you consider valuable there. Yeah. Use 106 to take whoever's left between Thibodeau and Hutchinson.
Or, because I don't know. Here's an idea.
Why are you going after a third stud defense?
Just as like an idea. Like if he's worried about losing his DNs, like those are valuable assets to have. He could use that to turn into a running back, solve that problem, and then use 6 for whatever he wants, technically.
Or use one of his DNs like RJ was saying to trade up. So Say go to the Broncos, who has 103, and say, here's Jalen Phillips in 106. Give me 103. And let me get the running back I want at 103 while Bill gets to move down and acquire future assets, including a potential future top DN. Sounds like a win-win. Everyone, you're
It
welcome.
does sound like a win-win, doesn't it, Panthers?
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's just like one of those things. Like the roster's already kind of fleshed out. You already know what picks he has, but it's like you have this like both of the Bosas are top tier productive defensive ends, worth more than like what you would assume like a stud is worth. Let's say a stud's worth a generic first round pick. They are worth far more than that. So then, like, why do you also have another stud in Jalen Phillips there? Like, use that value to go buy other stuff. Don't be lacking in these positions when you have an overabundance in other desirable positions.
Yeah, and I to an extent, like I know he's only like 1 year into his career, right? But like Phillips, to a certain point, holds more value than both Bosas because he's still on that like really thin, like really early on rookie deal.
Yeah,
you know the Bosas are both going to be $20 million next year.
You're not wrong.
Maybe I'm of a different mindset, but I'd rather pay the $20 million for guaranteed production versus someone who we've seen a year of.
agreed.
Well, I mean that's team building for you.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to be figured out there. Okay.
At least in that position. Like, look at how many 35-year-olds are still productive at that position. So,
Yep.
like, I'll take the known product over the guy with 1 year of production.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Any final parting thoughts on the Panthers, or should we move on to finish out the South?
Let's go on to the team that'll never listen to this.
I was actually just thinking, like, let's spend. I'm going to start the clock here. We're going to spend no more than 3 minutes on the Saints because if they're not going to listen, I mean, what's the point? So, go ahead and get my clock here. Timer.
I always make sure I keep at least one active trade offer to the Saints at all times, just in case I hit that moment when he gets on. Maybe he feels like he's accepting the trade.
That is
Counting
the
down.
smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Burn it all down to Brian Edwards. Just screw it. 5th round pick for everything other than Aaron Donald and Brian Edwards. Just get rid of it all. It's all terrible.
See, I'm all for a $20 million defensive end, but a $32 million defensive tackle. That's
See,
too much. That's
that's-
overboard.
That's the thing. Like if he's playing next year, he's worth it. Like that's the weird thing. Like he has true trade value on top of his bloated contract because that's just how many points you get on top of what a typical defensive tackle one gives you.
Yeah, and I can't believe he actually extended him after the Pro Bowl was announced.
I would have.
Well,
not in that exact scenario.
Right.
Like I would have definitely have extended him.
You find a way, but yeah, it's
interesting.
nobody's safe. Burn it down, get picks, just rebuild.
Yep. Or trade Brian Edwards away, then burn everything down, and then decide what you're going to do with that one first-round pick.
And he doesn't even have first. His earliest pick is 2015.
Yeah, that one first you'll get is probably from Edwards, and then everything else is worth.
He does have 3 firsts next year.
Wasn't that the deal? Like he got Edwards from the Pats in the late the trade deadline trade when the Pats was going crazy, and he gave up like half his first for Brian Edwards.
I don't even remember the trades I did last week.
Fair enough.
So yeah, it's tear it down, make it Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
You got the 5th year option. See what you can do there.
I mean,
you got some folks people should want to take a shot on the roster. Get 60 cents, stockpile a bunch of 3rd and 4th round picks, and you know what? Just enjoy it. Like take some shots and realize that there's some really good players in our league who came from the 3rd and 4th round. So
someone will buy Will Fuller from him.
That sad soul.
I'm pretty. So I don't know if this. I think this is one of the first he gave up. I gave my first and Will Fuller to get Tyler Lockett from him. So, I don't know. Again, he had more first at some point, but I don't know. We got 20 seconds left. Any further comments on this team?
No,
Um,
and people
hope that
don't
Teddy gets
offer
it.
him real things for Will Fuller. Stop it. That guy's washed.
Teddy Bridgewater has a chance to start somewhere. Hopefully he does. Otherwise, his team is totally useless. There it is.
There it is. 3 minutes. You thought I was kidding. I wasn't. All right. So, in summary, sell everything. Speaking of selling everything, wow, we've got 3 of the 4 teams here. If only Cowboys loved us enough to actually join one of these podcasts. I feel like this is almost another 3-minute team here because whatever we say, he's not going to listen to it. In fact, he might actually start offering stuff to us based off of some of this stuff in wildly inflated. No way we're going to take it prices, just because that's been my experience with Cowboys in the past.
Oh, I'd still entertain a Cam Akers offer, inflated or not.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll offer you Cam Akers for 1-on-1.
And he'll want more on top of it.
Exactly.
No deal.
Look, I could not think of a nicer person for the TJ Watt holdout to happen to. But that being said, Lawrence, Akers, some good receivers, Irv Smith, hopefully coming back healthy next year. The team could bounce into a solid position in the division. I think it's far from the strongest team, but he could find himself in the wild card spot if he plays his cards right. I think the big thing here is he has the money to pay TJ Watt, so he needs to make the decision of, am I paying TJ Watt or am I trading TJ Watt? He had a abundance of riches at both Parsons and Watt, destroying worlds last year at $7 million a pop or less. So now it's a question of, with $70 million in cap space, do I use $20 million of that, $25 million of that, whatever it costs on TJ Watt, or do I let somebody else do that and have one last thank you very much defensive player of the year for everything you gave me while I was tanking. Now go forth and kick ass for somebody else. If it's me, I'm moving TJ Watt, and it's just a question of, what do I get back? A team that gets him is going to have enough cap. Is going to be a contender, but has to have enough cap space left to do the trade extension that comes with him. And again, I don't know if anyone's looked it up while I've been talking, but I think you're going to need probably about 18 to 20 million probably for what that contract ends up looking like. If it's me, I'm going to, I don't know, the AFC North, I think, looking at the Browns or the Ravens or the Bengals to see if I can get one of those teams set up with a TJ Watt, get a first, and then maybe a promising linebacker back. So if I'm looking at, say, the Ravens, let's see, they've got $16 million in space here. You'd have to get a pretty good sized contract back. Maybe he doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think the Browns probably does. They picked up Shaq Barrett. I don't know, like Jaylen Brown and a first for TJ Watt. That's probably not quite enough, but it's enough to have a starting point on things and then kind of build around it from there.
So it's interesting that you're talking about how he never gets online. I talked to him 2 days ago about Parsons and Watt. I've been like shopping around, just looking at things, and he said, I need to be blown away for the 2 best linebackers in the league, and I'm either going to hold Watt or I'm going to let him sit in a holdout on IR all year because he's in tank mode.
But again, how are you still in tank mode?
Because Trevor Lawrence is a bust and he doesn't have a good quarterback.
I was going to say, because Trevor Lawrence is going to be sucky the rest of his career.
So the one thing that I would do is I would hope somebody will reimburse me that 2nd round pick that I just spent on Sterling Shepard.
Finally found somebody to take him. Took me a long time.
I told you somebody would pay up eventually.
You did say that.
And then, yeah, like TJ Watt's the only other asset that I'm actually looking to move. Like, I like a lot of the young pieces. Maybe I'm trying to like move Kyle Rudolph, like whatever value you can get out of him at this point. But like the rest of the like good players, like I see no issue with holding on to. I probably profit off of Akers just because like I don't know if his age window is going to necessarily align with his competitive age window. So like with that particular player, I just keep kicking the can down. Like, you know, a couple more years, give me another high end pick. Maybe I can flip that high end pick for another one, you know, the year after, something like that, just to like get to that point where you're like, I like my team, then you can take your running back. Or maybe like the year prior to where you get it really like finished up. But I would just try to somehow keep rolling that value down until the windows align.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because he's like in like such a middle territory that the idea of him tanking is like, what is this team going to look like? Akers would have to go. Shepard would have to go. Parsons and Watt would both have to go.
I mean, he's not going to shit the bed. Like, he's still going to put up some amount of wins.
Yeah.
I mean, the other truth of the matter here is he's not going to win the division unless Washington decides that he really doesn't want to get a quarterback.
I've had about 30 billion offers, not even me sending them out. So it'll happen at some point, but I'm taking my time.
Yeah, so
Taylor Heineke's here for you, man.
You're going to get a quarterback.
Giants.
I think I'd pay TJ Watt. I think his team's good enough to pay him.
The Giants are the Giants are accumulating enough points that they're going to challenge, but probably fall short into a wild card. So the Cowboys' best case probably this year is a wild card. So if your best case is a wild card, I can understand trying to go one more year back into it. The problem is we're not playing 2K. Like, this is the guys age out, the guys get hurt, players lose value. Like, yes, fine, keep building, but especially if it's not to me, move some of these players while they have the value now. Like, don't move Cam Akers because he's coming off a really shitty Super Bowl and you're not going to get fair value for him.
You don't think you could get a comparable pick for him right now?
Where was he drafted?
109. I bet you could get a top 5 pick for him. Roughly. No. Probably maybe a little bit past that top 5, but you could easily.
Darrell Henderson's the starter, and then Sony Michel's the backup at this point.
Don't let our lads trick you like that.
Oh no. No, I'm letting the fact that Cam Akers fumbled like 5 times in the playoffs tell me that story.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he had Henderson too. You could do the package for the stack.
So again, if you're gonna move if you can move Akers for a top 5 pick, yeah, do it. If you can't, don't move from a position of weakness and move from a position of strength. Your position of strength right now is Micah Parsons or TJ Watt, like you said. It's going to take a godsend for you to get rid of them. But please, and like I said, especially if it's not to me, because I don't want to trade it to you. Go get a good package from somebody for TJ Watt, get him off of your team, and make your team actually, competitive again. Like, have some fun in this league. So all I have to say about that, I would say that the trade he should be making is TJ Watt to a team that is up and coming with space, can pay the $18 million, give him either multiple firsts or a first and a strong enough prospect to get him going.
Yeah,
I know he's not really a believer in Trevor Lawrence, and a couple other people on this call might not be.
Yes, he is.
He traded for that pick.
Yeah.
If you actually watched any Jags games last year, it's looking bleak.
Look,
I told all of you this 13 months ago.
Again, it's either because he loves messing with teams who are active, or because he actually believes it. He's never moving Trevor Lawrence.
No.
So
I tried. Yeah.
a piece that he would, which is like I said, if I can do something that allows me to move off of, Cam now at that valuation, or TJ at a defensive player of the year valuation, you do it.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
Enough about a player. Enough about an owner who wasn't here. Let's talk about a team who's making moves, making all of the sexy moves, but still has $60 million left in cap space. RJ, what is it like to own the most expensive receiver in the entire world?
I mean, I love my wide receivers, and I do intend on improving on it. But I am excited just to hear everybody else's opinion on what I should be doing and how they feel I have progressed so far in the off season.
Yeah, you definitely made a couple of moves that I'm just like, this is annoyingly good values. And your receiver crew here is actually pretty solid, especially for best ball. So I'm annoyed.
Yeah, I think the strides you've made at this point are insane. This is compared to how bad your team looks. At the bottom, it's crazy where you build it to at this point.
Yeah.
You can use some safeties.
Eventually.
Safety is definitely there. Tight end is there. I'm super, super excited to watch you roll out Jeremy Ruckert next year as your starting tight end. No, but I don't know. I mean, this was your plan. I mean, I don't know what your ideas are for Trey Lance, but I don't know. I don't know how much I trust that future in particular. I'm not a Niners diehard. I know everything about the Niners, but I don't know. Doesn't it seem kind of odd that they have no interest in putting him on the field?
No.
It's
I have confidence in him being productive, because worst case scenario, what you're going to get is a mediocre quarterback that also stacks a whole bunch of points for his running.
Yeah.
no Tebow.
So, regardless, you're going to get a better than average quarterback out of him. I can still also move him. The hype is real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, you're the Niners guy here. What is the outlook that you have for him? Because the stuff I've heard is just if Jimmy moves, it's because they're going to bring in Tom Brady because he's not going to stay retired. That kind of thing. So nothing is about Trey Lance starting. It's all about he needs a second year to sit.
I would be shocked if Trey Lance was not the week 1 starter for the
Yeah. I think status quo is sitting a year.
It would be incredibly surprising. I think everybody looked at the quarterbacks last year and said everyone in this class probably needs a year to sit. The only team who sat the quarterback down, except for emergency situations, was the 49ers. And if you look at the way Lance played in starts, in his QB rating and all of his stats against what every other rookie quarterback did, Lance beat them all. So I'm going to say anyone who's saying he's not ready to start is listening to the voices rather than the data. But that being said, I think there still needs to be a backup plan in place. And it's not going to be a situation where you get over your skis on it. This is not Colin Kaepernick. He's not going to run for 100 yards a game. He's a pocket passer who can run. Think Russ Wilson early on in his career. Really useful player, but tried to pass before he ran. It took a while before he really developed those legs. So I think you're going to be looking at somebody who has the passing lines of Jimmy with the occasional rushing lines of Josh Allen's the wrong person here.
But the rushing touchdowns might be about right there.
Josh Allen year 1
Yes,
is an acceptable comparison.
so something like 400 yard. If I were to project a line for him next year, I'm thinking about 3,500 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 400 to 450 yards rushing, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Is that a top 10 quarterback in this league? No. Is that a productive quarterback in this league, especially at that price tag? Absolutely.
Yes. Would you? Okay, let me ask you this: just on contracts and like expectations, would you rather? What any of you? Would you guys rather have Tua or Trey going into next year?
I have offered RJ Tua plus a lot of pieces to get Trey, because that's the level of upgrade I think that he's going to give, especially once he gets his legs under him. So I have no shame in saying that. And again, I hope I can get Trey on my team at some point before next year. But that said, I think the range of outcomes is real, but I think everyone's looking at the worst case right now. But forget that if you look at the games they played and the on-field performance, it's not a comparison, guys.
I'm very happy with him as a quarterback. I'm super comfortable going into the 101 having him, and like I can strongly consider just taking best player available, not like best non-quarterback player.
What do you need Kenny Pickett for?
He's not even the best quarterback in this class.
I can't wait. Guys, can we just get through the rest of this, because we've got 6 people on, and that means we can talk all sorts of crazy-ass trades.
Right.
So that's what we're really here for. So let's – you know what?
The one thing that I'm going to say, like to toot my own horn, is like watch how I build up the team, and then as long as I don't screw it up, because this is just my plan. This isn't a guarantee. This would be like ideally how you would just want to allocate the value and the picks and the just what you have as far as assets. Is like go towards wide receiver, go towards defensive end first year, because what are the 2 positions where you see like mid 30s other than quarterback, and these players are still like not declining?
Mm-hmm.
It's defensive end and wide receiver, regardless of like how valuable they are in the league. Like I'm going for guys that are like young and are going to have like good longevity. Yeah, my defensive ends are a little bit older, but like I can still get 2 or 3 years out of them. Jared Cook's kind of just like an added value. He found his way onto my team, and I can just hold on to him for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if he's going to retire. I'll tell you right now, if it was 4 years in the future and we don't have the retirement clause, I'm not franchising him. I'm just going to let him fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were you with that 101, personally, I would take another quarterback if you don't get what you're looking for, because nothing else is going to retain value like having that carrot to dangle in front of people for teams that don't have a quarterback. It's going to retain value throughout the year, just like Trey Lance. And you can shoot for the year 2 rebuild instead of all in 1 year. Just because how many running backs do you see taken, super high that fall off after a year? I mean, every single year, but quarterback is always going to maintain that value.
Yeah.
That's
very fair.
I think Breece Hall and Drake London have a pretty good shot at maintaining their value this year. But I don't know. I mean, I do agree.
Say what's up.
Right.
Javonte Williams had an exceptional year last year, and I still wouldn't trade the 101 for him.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't the 101 last year, though.
I know, but he was wide receiver 2 or running back 2, running back 3, something like that. And he had a year that showed a lot of upside towards the end. Like ideally something you want from a dynasty asset.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he in theory should have increased in value.
Yeah, he gave Denver no reason to bring back Melvin Gordon.
Right. But in that same sense, just agreeing with with what Washington said. Like, I don't see a quarterback, or I don't see a non-quarterback holding that value.
That's fair.
Like where you can go ask for like the next year's 101 and maybe get something else.
Would you take Jonathan Taylor?
Nope.
No,
I was offered
really?
that.
Interesting. Never mind. Anyway.
All right, so we're gonna talk about the rest of the NFC East, and we're gonna save the NFC West for the next podcast. We're an hour and 15 in, and we all need to make time to have the real fun that we want to have on here. So, as much as it pains me to say who we're going to talk about next, it's the team that's probably made the biggest trade this offseason so far.
Yeah.
It's not the multiple biggest trades of the offseason thus far, and is setting himself up as the team to beat in the NFC East. Somebody talk about the Giants. I can't do it. I can't.
What a turnaround. Like, I never thought that I would look at the Josh Allen extension and be like, yeah, totally worth $40 million. And then you look at how his team is built, and I'm like, oh, yeah, totally worth $40 million. You know, so it's all a matter of perspective, I suppose. But, man, it's incredible, like, what was pulled off here. And to still have picks out of it is great.
Yeah, every Deshaun Watson trade I've seen, I've been on the other side of it. I can't believe the value different teams have given up for him, and this last trade was the biggest example of that. It's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know what happened there, but that was crazy.
This is probably Bill's homer shining through, but I think that is the single worst trade I have seen in my time here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the uncertainty around Watson. He may never play again. And on top of Watson, you're throwing in a cornerback and some mid-late picks.
Even at that,
for Allen, like Jesus.
even at that cap hit, I think he's the only player that probably could have got 101 off of me straight up.
Yep. Then it would have been well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can dangle that carrot of Trey Lance over everybody said.
So
Deshaun Watson, Caleb Farley at 328 and a 2 in 2023 for Josh Allen alone.
So I think this team is good on the top end, but it's a Giants team. Like, it really resembles the it's the skeleton of the championship Giants squad, in the sense that we're gonna say halfway through the season, oh, this team doesn't have any depth, but it's all like studs. Like, it is a tentpole team, and as long as none of those poles go down, this team is ridiculous.
Again, I agree completely with what RJ said. This is the team to beat in the East, but the Giants, if they still have their 23 first-round pick, should not trade it. just don't. Just don't do it. Like, best advice I can give you.
I have a very specific trade that I have been trying to do with several teams with that first next year. But yes, I agree. The depth is my only concern. I did pretty well in free agency last year, in terms of like some lower end pieces. So like I think I can get there. Also with some of the picks that I've retained or gained since then. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the turnaround.
Yeah. I think the only thing that needs a little improvement, and like literally just a little, is you need a running back for McCaffrey, and you need maybe one or two more linebackers that are equally productive options. You know, but generally, like, I like the team a lot, and your wide receivers are very interesting because of the injuries that they're all coming off of, except for Diggs. So I'm curious how that's going to play out for you, but I like the team overall in general.
I think Watkins was pretty healthy too, but yeah, I think linebacker is my area that I've been trying to find some value most actively the last couple of weeks. But I've been striking out.
Yeah, I think it resembles a lot what I went with the last couple of years with almost no depth And as the injuries start piling in, you just mortgage your future for a Mike Evans or something to that extent. But I mean, no, I like the team a lot.
I would say maybe resembles your first year of winning the division. But I feel like your team through the year, 2 years has gotten a lot better as far as depth. Still, like, you're in a great situation now.
So I'm going to throw out something here. Kind of, we were talking about this earlier, and this is obviously just an idea, but like, would this be a good spot option to utilize the fact that George Kittle is a top 3 tight end asset, get Kelsey, and then add on top of it? Cap room is tight, obviously, but you could take sub 2 million George Kittle, get Kelsey, and then still add to it because of the fact that the contract is more valuable than Kelsey's.
No, I would much rather take the gamble on a healthy Kittle.
Yeah, I would too, long term. Also, I think he's 3 or 4 years, and then Kelsey.
And honestly, the big thing for the Giants right now is he's blown his big contracts already. He can't take on another big contract. He's still got to figure out what he's going to do to get 14 players and $24 million. So that's not going to be an easy thing here. So taking that and constraining that to 23 players and $4 million is not going to be helpful here. So I think he's got to keep the bargain basement hat on here, unless he's able to flip. I mean, who's giving stuff for Arden Key? Like, I can see the reason to hang on to him, but when you're this strapped for cash, having a player like him who's taking a third of your available cap space right now, like, that's a challenge. So I think it's a position of strength, and position of strength to me is honestly a player he's already acquired.
Yeah.
The only other spot I could see being a player to move, and I swear, Brandon, this is not me trying to get the player. Give him to anybody else.
It totally is.
It's not. I swear to God, it's not. I don't want him. If you send me a Fred Warner offer, I'm going to reject it. But breaking down Fred Warner into a piece and then additional capital, I think is the move here. He can't give up Allen, McCaffrey, or Diggs without wildly sub-optimizing his team. You can't move off of Heineke until the Washington quarterback position clarifies itself. So the only big contract he can move off of from a position of strength is Warner. So Warner, I think you should be able to get a first plus another linebacker or something for that player, and based off of the level of performance at a $9.5 million price tag. Save yourself $8 million, give yourself a couple of pieces in the process, and go fill 16 spots with 32 instead of 14 with 24. That's what I'm suggesting there. And again, don't offer me Warner. I don't want him.
All right. Well, we have one more team to get to.
Yeah.
Still have Washington.
Do we really need to get to them?
Oh, we do.
They're commies. We don't need to talk about them.
Because I have a couple of suggestions. Team stacked. Like, we all know this. Like, look at the team. Buy a quarterback.
Yep.
Crazy idea. He's only got $58 million in cap space.
Watson, for the last 2 months, 3 months, I can tell you the quarterback market is bare.
I don't know. 129, Matt Ryan. Take a shot at this year.
Aaron Rodgers. I've gotten offers of guys that are either, going to be looking for a new team or guys that are solidified, but they're asking for way, way too much. So I'm taking my time, seeing what happens with Trask, seeing if I want to, trade up or if I want to get a vet. I think the market's out there. It's just at this point in the off season, I think it's so early that people they're not as active as they would be in around the draft time.
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks early. because like so many quarterbacks could move and everything could change. Like I know me personally, like I have Wentz and Trubisky. Both could very easily land on different teams. Both probably do. Are they starters? Probably, but
No.
first off, Trubisky maybe not. Wentz will definitely be a starter somewhere. It's just a matter of where and when. And until then, like those kinds of guys are stuck in limbo. And Aaron Rodgers for the Raiders, he's another one who's just like, is he playing or not? We don't know. So he has no value right now. It's stuff like that. Like this is a weird time for quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, exactly how many spots are open, and how many quarterbacks are available.
Right.
I think if again, I haven't done the homework yet. I can do the homework while we're talking here, but my guess would be there's probably 4 or 5 spots max available, and anywhere from 2 to 12 of the quarterbacks we're talking about.
So, going back to Washington, and the things that I would be doing. Ooh, you have a stud young tight end. I would probably get rid of Hunter Henry. I'd break him down to something else better. Get you a decent tight end too, and like another wide receiver.
I might even look at like another running back because I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Chris Carson this year.
Or Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, and then Cook is never a burden of health, obviously. So that would be a place to look as well. Like maybe turn Tyreek Hill or Mike Evans or whichever player you feel is not worth $20 million into a running back of some consequence.
I think surprisingly, with both Hill and Evans, the most offers I've gotten are for Evans, not Hill.
I think people are afraid of Tyreek Hill kind of falling off a cliff because the offense is not what it used to be 2 years ago.
Is that also true post Brady possible retirement?
Yeah, I feel like Evans has always held his value. He's always been one of those underrated top 10 dynasty wide receivers.
He's had 1,000+ his entire career.
Yeah.
He's like insanely consistent, and it's like he's creeping up in record books at this point.
Yeah, it's weird because his name is like when you talk about him as a fantasy asset, it's almost like you're talking about Brandon Cooks, or like
he's the same way.
Yeah, they're great assets to have, but nobody wants them for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's really
straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah,
because they've hit that age where it's better to get your value because he's a perceived diminishing asset.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a typical thing with like late 20s wide receivers, and then like they get into their 30s and they're always worth like a middling value, but they're always great value.
Yeah. It's funny because Keenan Allen just went through that same thing. Like for the last 2 or 3 years, he was like, don't touch him. Mike Evans is the guy. And then Keenan Allen's just blown up again. But it's interesting here. Like, you obviously need corners, but those are a dime a dozen.
I place zero value in corners. You'll notice I'll pick them all up in free agency.
Right.
You will not see me draft one. You will not see me trade for one ever.
Exactly.
I will ask people to take them off of trades just because I don't want to fucking play them. Never.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it really just comes down to like with the 58 million and change, like where does your quarterback situation fall, and your running back situation? Like, are you able to flip players and picks into a rookie contract for a running back and not worry about it? That kind of thing. So I still like the team. Like at the end of the day, if I'm looking at this is probably going to be a Giants versus a Giants versus Commanders. Wow, that's so weird. Division race. So I think it's going to be a lot more fun than it was last year to watch this division.
If I were you, I would be knocking on Chiefs' door for Daniel Jones.
For
what?
You got a 5th round pick lying around, right?
Yeah, you can. I think your first, you're like whatever is 129 or that area for Daniel Jones might not be a horrible.
Daniel Jones in a 3rd.
Sure. Yeah.
So throw it out there. Give it a
Sure.
shot. Like, that's
Giants. I'm a Giants fan, so like the team is rolling it back with DJ.
All right.
At least for a year.
I'll send him Trask for Jones. Is that fair?
he may take that just for the Trask contract.
We're at an hour and a half, and I'm getting sassy. Cut it off so I can talk trades.
all right. RJ's wish is our command. Guys, thank you. 6 guys on the pod is one of the best we've ever done, and especially for this period of time. My apologies to the NFC West. You're the Matt Damon of our league. We'll get to you next time. I promise. But at an hour and a half, it's time to go. It's time to talk trades and hopefully make some shit happen, because there's been too much of the maybe, I don't know happening. So, let's make some magic. So, RJ, Alex, Sean, Bill, Brandon, thank you for being on. Those who are watching, thank you for watching. And let's get sexy here.
Thanks.